Ready for a deep dive. Today, we're tackling time, and you've shared some excerpts from Carlo Rovelli's The Order of Time.
Yeah.
He's a physicist, but this book isn't your typical science read.
Right.
It blends physics with philosophy and personal reflection, which is kind of perfect for what we're doing today, exploring what time really is.
It's one of those books that makes you look at the world a little bit differently, I think.
Yeah.
Rovelli asks these huge questions, and
Yeah.
his answers can be pretty mind-bending.
That's what we're here for. I mean, we all experience time every second, but have you ever stopped to think what it really means for time to pass?
You're right.
Or why we even remember the past but not the future? Get ready to have some assumptions challenged because a lot of what we think we know about time turns out to be wrong.
Yeah, Rovelli really throws down the gauntlet right off the bat.
Okay.
One of the first things that he dismantles is this idea of time as like a universal constant.
Whoa, wait, time is not universal. That's blowing my mind already. So what are the implications of that? Does that mean time is literally different in different places?
It really does. Like, time passes faster in the mountains than at sea level.
Wait, seriously, if I relocate to the Swiss Alps, I'm going to age faster than my friends by the beach.
You're not going to turn into a time traveler overnight or anything, but yes, the principle's sound.
Okay.
And it's all thanks to Einstein's theory of relativity.
Of course, Einstein always got to bring in the big guns.
Well, in this case, it's his insights about mass and gravity.
Okay.
Mass actually slows down time around it. Since the Earth is one giant mass, someone living at sea level closer to that mass is aging ever so slightly slower than you up in the mountains, further away from that concentration of mass.
That's fascinating, but it's hard to wrap my head around it.
Yeah.
Is there a simpler way to visualize how gravity is essentially a warping of time?
Think of it this way. Objects are drawn towards where time runs slower.
Okay.
It's like they're trying to slide down a time slope.
Interesting.
Your feet are stuck to the ground because time is running a tiny bit slower there than at your head.
So gravity isn't just a mysterious force pulling things down. It's things trying to move towards slower time.
That's the gist of it.
Wow.
Rovelli really emphasizes that gravity is a consequence of this warped time landscape, not just some independent force.
So time isn't just this steady beat. It's more like this warped landscape, and we're all kind of tumbling through it at different speeds.
Yeah.
That is wild. Okay, so we've established that time isn't the same everywhere.
Right.
Now let's tackle another big misconception. The idea that time always flows from past to future. Is that direction really baked into the universe?
That's a fantastic question, and it leads us right into the heart of one of Rovelli's core arguments, the arrow of time. This idea that time only moves from past to future.
Yeah.
It's a common assumption, but it turns out it's not as fundamental as we think.
Wait, are you saying time might not always flow forward? I'm almost afraid to ask where this is going.
Most laws of physics actually work the same, whether time is moving forward or backward.
Okay.
Think of a video of billiard balls colliding.
Right.
You can play it forward or in reverse, and the physics still make sense.
Okay, that makes sense. But then what makes time have a direction in our everyday experience?
The only fundamental law that gives time a clear direction is the one about heat. Heat always flows from hot to cold, never the other way around.
Right.
It's the telltale sign of time moving forward as we perceive it.
Okay.
Physicists call this the arrow of time.
So time's direction is all about entropy, that tendency toward disorder. Like a shattered glass never spontaneously reassembles because that would mean disorder decreasing.
Exactly. And that's where this Boltzmann guy comes in. The one I said you should look up.
Right.
Ludwig Boltzmann was the physicist who cracked this heat and time code. Brilliant, but kind of a tragic figure.
Ooh.
His story's worth a Google search later. Trust me.
Okay, add it to my to-read list, but back to this heat and time connection. What does that tell us about time itself?
What's fascinating is that Boltzmann's work revealed this.
Okay.
The arrow of time, that forward direction, isn't some inherent property of time itself. It's tied to our limited perspective on the universe.
Okay.
We see the world at a macro level where entropy always increases.
So this whole time flows forward thing, it's kind of an illusion based on how we as humans experience the world.
It's more like an emergent property.
Okay.
Think of it as a consequence of our macroscopic view of reality where entropy always increases. It's not that time itself inherently has a direction. It's that our limited, blurry view of the universe's entropy creates the arrow of time for us.
This is where things get really interesting and maybe a bit mind-bending.
Right.
Rovelli argues that there's no such thing as a universal now.
Yeah.
It's a concept that's completely relative to our location and speed.
Precisely. And it all circles back to Einstein and his theories of relativity.
Okay.
He showed us that time is relative to your location and speed.
Wait, so does that mean if I have a sibling on a planet light years away, I can't really say what they're doing right this second?
Exactly.
Whoa.
There's no universal now that connects us. Our perception of now is limited by the speed of light and our specific location in space-time.
Yeah.
What we think of as happening simultaneously in different parts of the universe is kind of an illusion.
Okay. My brain officially hurts, but this is fascinating stuff. So, if fundamental time is this messy relative thing, how do we experience it so neatly flowing from past to future?
That's a great question. And it gets to the heart of what Rovelli is trying to explain.
Okay.
We experience time because of our limited, blurry view of the universe as entropy.
Right.
Remember, that's the measure of disorder.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see a pattern here. It seems like so much of our understanding of time is really about perspective, isn't it?
You're absolutely right. We see the world at a macro level, not atom by atom. This blurriness, plus the inherent randomness of quantum mechanics, means we can't know the full state of the universe at any given moment.
And that lack of knowledge, that blurriness, is what actually creates time for us.
Precisely.
Wow.
We see things flowing in the direction of increasing entropy disorder, always increasing over time, and that becomes our arrow of time. It gives us that sense of time moving forward.
Okay.
But it's our experience of time, not necessarily the fundamental nature of time itself.
All right, so time is relative. It's blurry. And its direction is based on our limited knowledge of the universe's entropy. Anything else I need to add to my time is messed up list?
Well, hold on tight, because Rovelli goes even further.
Okay.
He argues that time as we experience it isn't just about physics, it's also about our memories.
Memories. How do those fit into all of this?
We're exploring the human experience of time, not just the abstract physics.
Okay.
Rovelli points out that we weave moments together using memory, creating a narrative of our lives.
Right.
This is why the past feels fixed and the future open. We have a record of one but not the other, and that sense of a personal history, that I-S time as we subjectively know it.
So you're saying our internal experience of time is literally shaped by how our brains store and recall memories?
That's exactly right. Our experiences of time speeding up or slowing down depend on our emotional state and how those moments are imprinted in our memories. Think about it. Time for us is deeply tied to emotion, anticipation, regret, nostalgia. All these feelings powered by memory and our limited perspective are what make time so meaningful.
It's incredible to think that we're not just traveling through time, we're creating it as we go, building our own personal timelines through memory and experience. It's blowing my mind. I think we need to pause here for now. Stay tuned for part 2 of our deep dive into the nature of time, where we'll explore what's left of time after we've stripped away all these illusions. Welcome back. Last time, we left off with this incredible concept that time might be more of a human construct than a fundamental property of the universe. It really makes you question everything you thought you knew. So what happens to our understanding of time if we take away all these assumptions?
That's the central question that Carlo Rovelli tackles in the rest of the book.
Okay.
Having deconstructed our everyday notions of time, he starts to rebuild a new understanding one, based on what physics actually tells us.
And I'm guessing that new understanding doesn't involve the clocks and calendars we're so used to?
Not exactly. Rovelli says to truly grasp time, we need to shift our focus from thinking about things to thinking about events.
Okay, I'm intrigued, but I need you to break that down a bit. What does he mean by events?
Instead of picturing the world as a collection of static objects just hanging out in space and time, think of it as a constant flux of happenings, of interactions, of processes unfolding. Those events are the fundamental building blocks of reality.
So instead of thinking about this chair as a thing that exists in time, I should be thinking about all the events that led to its creation, all the interactions between its atoms, and how it will inevitably change over time?
Precisely. It's a shift from a noun-based view of reality to a verb-based one. And this is crucial for understanding time, because Rovelli argues time itself isn't some independent entity flowing along. It emerges from the relationships between these events.
But how can we even talk about the relationships between events without time? How do we sequence them? It feels like we're stuck in a chicken and egg situation here.
That's the challenge, and it's where physics gets really strange, but also really exciting. To figure this out, we have to dive into quantum gravity,
Okay.
which attempts to reconcile Einstein's theory of general relativity with the world of quantum mechanics.
And from what we've talked about, quantum mechanics doesn't exactly play nice with our intuitive notions of time, does it?
Not at all. In the quantum realm, time at its most fundamental level might be granular rather than continuous.
Granular, you mean like time comes in little packets?
That's one way to think about it.
Hmm.
Imagine the smallest possible unit of time, a sort of quantum tick that can't be divided any further.
Hmm.
At this level of reality, things get really weird. Events might not even have a definite order.
Okay, now I'm really lost. How can events not have an order? Doesn't that just break reality?
It definitely challenges our common sense view of reality.
Yeah.
What's fascinating is that the math of quantum gravity suggests these events are interconnected in a web of relationships. The order we perceive the flow of time emerges from those relationships.
So instead of this neat linear timeline, time is more like a tangled web where past, present, and future aren't clearly defined. It's all a bit much for my brain to handle.
It's a mind-blowing concept for sure. And remember, this is all happening at the Planck scale, which is unbelievably tiny. We're talking about lengths and durations so small, they're almost impossible to grasp.
I get that this is all very theoretical, but how does any of this connect to our everyday experience of time? Why should I care if time is granular at some subatomic level?
That's a great question, and it's where Rovelli's book gets really thought-provoking. He argues that this blurriness of time at the fundamental level is actually what gives rise to the time we experience.
Okay, I'm all ears. Walk me through that.
Think back to entropy, that measure of disorder.
Right.
The fact that we can't know the exact microscopic state of the universe at any given moment creates a kind of blur, a lack of precise information.
Right. It's like we're looking at a blurry photo of reality instead of a high-definition image.
That blurriness, that fundamental uncertainty about the universe's microstates is what creates the arrow of time for us. It's what makes the past feel so different from the future.
Because we have a memory of the past, but not the future.
Exactly. The past has left traces. Think of it like footprints in the sand.
Okay.
And those traces, that accumulation of events, create a kind of order, a directionality that we perceive as the flow of time. But it's crucial to understand that this flow isn't baked into time itself. It's a consequence of our limited macroscopic perspective.
So time is kind of an illusion then, a trick our brains play on us.
Not an illusion, but an emergent phenomenon. Rovelli argues that time arises from the interaction between the universe's fundamental, possibly timeless reality and our limited perspective as observers. We're actively participating in creating our experience of time.
I have to admit there's something comforting about that. It means time isn't this relentless force dragging us toward oblivion. It's something we're actively participating in co-creating through our interactions with the world.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And it's where Rovelli's book starts to explore the philosophical implications of all this.
Okay.
If time is so closely tied to our perspective, what does that mean for our understanding of free will, identity, and even consciousness itself?
Those are some big questions, and I think that's a perfect place to wrap up this part of our deep dive. Stay tuned for part 3, where we'll explore how Rovelli brings all of this together and what it means for us as humans grappling with our existence in time.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the nature of time. So far, we've journeyed from the mind-bending realm of quantum gravity to the very personal experience of memory and emotion.
Now it's time to try to piece it all together.
Exactly. In the final part of the book, Rovelli tries to bring all these seemingly disparate threads together to answer some big questions like, what is the source of time? What makes us experience the world as this flowing river of moments,
Right.
even if that flow isn't as fundamental as we once thought?
After all this, is there like some grand unified theory of time, some equation that explains it all?
If there is, we haven't quite cracked it yet.
Okay.
But Rovelli does offer a really compelling framework for understanding time as an emergent phenomenon. It arises from the interplay of several factors.
I'm all about actionable insights, so let's break those factors down. What are the key takeaways here?
The first thing to remember is that time is not this external independent entity ticking away at a constant pace.
Right.
It's woven into the fabric of the universe, intertwined with space and matter.
Okay.
And it's relative, meaning it flows at different rates, depending on your location and speed.
Right. We covered that gravity slows down time. My friend at sea level is aging a tiny bit slower than I am up here in the mountains. Thanks, Einstein.
Exactly. The key takeaway here is that time is dynamic and responsive to the world around it. It's part of the dance, not the stage.
Okay, so time is more like a participant in the cosmic ballet than a passive observer. Got it. What's next?
Next, we have to factor in that blurriness we talked about.
Right.
Our inability to know the precise microstate of the universe creates this fundamental uncertainty,
Yeah.
and that uncertainty gives rise to the arrow of time.
Okay.
It's why we remember the past but not the future, why things fall apart but don't spontaneously reassemble. It's all about increasing entropy, that tendency towards disorder.
So entropy really is driving the whole show. It's like the engine of the universe, right?
Exactly.
Huh.
Rovelli makes this beautiful point when he talks about how it's not energy that makes the world go round, it's low entropy.
Mm.
We need that constant flow from order to disorder to power everything from stars to life itself.
Okay, I'm seeing how all of this connects, but where do WE fit into this picture? We're not just passive observers of entropy, are we?
Absolutely not. Rovelli argues that our very experience of time is what makes it meaningful.
Okay.
Our memories, our anticipations, our emotions, they're all woven into the tapestry of time as we perceive it.
So time isn't just out there, it's also in here, in our minds.
Precisely.
Mm.
There's a line in the book that really captures this. Rovelli writes, "We are stories contained within the 20 complicated centimeters behind our eyes."
Wow, what an image. It really drives home the point that time for us is this ongoing narrative, this constant weaving together of past, present, and future through our individual experiences.
And that's what makes time so powerful and poignant.
Mm.
It's not just a physical dimension, it's the very fabric of our being.
Yeah.
That's where we live, where we love, where we lose, where we create meaning.
So after all this mind-bending exploration, what are we left with? What is the source of time, according to Rovelli?
He doesn't give us a simple answer, but
Yeah.
he suggests that the source of time is ultimately our ignorance. It's the fact that we can't know the universe in all its infinite detail.
Okay.
We are limited, finite beings interacting with a vast, complex reality.
Time is ignorance. That's a pretty profound and maybe even a little unsettling thought.
It is profound, but it's not meant to be depressing. It's an invitation to embrace the mystery,
Okay.
to appreciate the beauty of our limited perspective. Because it's precisely those limitations, that blurriness, that allows us to experience the world as this flowing river of moments, each one precious, each one unique.
It seems like the big takeaway here is that time isn't something to fear or fight against. It's something to savor, to cherish, to explore.
Exactly. And maybe by embracing the mystery of time, we can learn to live more fully in the present, appreciating the miracle of our existence in this vast unfolding universe.
That's a beautiful note to end on. And with that, we've reached the end of our deep dive into the nature of time. We hope you've enjoyed the journey and will continue to ponder the mysteries of time long after this episode ends.